project and the San Francisco Rec and Parks Department. And of course, this project would not be possible without residents who were so generous in sharing their stories, their artifacts, their photos, and for us to be able to display this exhibit today. We also want to thank OCA, Asian Pacific American Advocates. They are one of our sponsors for today's program. And want to let you know that the exhibit here at the Sunset Rec will be up until December 20th. So if you want to tell your friends and family about this project, it will be up until the 20th. However, there's also a second exhibition. Second version is at the San Francisco Main Library on the 3rd floor. And one of the projects today is to create a community mural. So that mural will also be included in the San Francisco Main Library. So that exhibit will be up until February 22nd, 2018. Want to let you know about today's program. So after the welcoming remarks, we have Annette Wong from Chinese for Affirmative Action here. She's going to share a little bit about the work of CAA and talking about immigration rights. And at 12 o'clock, we have Lenora Lee Gans, who's going to share an excerpt of the project within these walls. And at 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock, there will be walking tours of the sunset. So we have our gallery coordinator, William Chen, who's going to be leading those tours. Elaine Chu of Twin Wall Mural started outside, and they already started to paint on the community mural. So everyone is welcome to participate. No prior art experience is required. And I want to end by saying that CHSA is a member-supported organization. And so if you enjoyed the program for today, the exhibit, we welcome your donations. We welcome you to become a member of the organization, and of course to come visit us in Chinatown. And if you're also thinking about shopping for the holidays, we have a mini pop-up shop right outside. And so thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you welcome Annette Wong today.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Annette, and I'm from Chinese for Affirmative Action, and this is my colleague, Hong Wei.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Hong Wei Kang. I'm also with Chinese for Affirmative Action.
We're very excited to be here today, and very grateful to the Historical Society for giving us a chance to talk a little bit about what's happening, in these days under the Trump administration in terms of immigrant rights. And as we've had a chance to, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at these panels that are here to be set up by the Historical Society, but there are a lot of parallels between the exclusion that Chinese people have faced in the Sunset, and as the community has developed an identity in San Francisco over the decades, we see similar patterns happening to immigrants in today's country, in our nation today. So we wanted a chance to talk a little bit about that. So we'll get started. We have a PowerPoint here. It's a little hard to see, but Homie and I are going to talk through it a little bit, so hopefully it'll make sense. So this is a little bit about CHSA. So Chinese for Affirmative Action, we're located in Chinatown, right across from Horseman Square on Walter Ulam Place, so a little alleyway. And we've been around since the late 1960s, 1969, really coming out of the civil rights movement era. There were some young activists, Chinese American activists, who were very interested in joining the movement for civil rights, pushing alongside other communities of color with third world solidarity movements. And one of the first landmark cases that Chinese for Affirmative Action was a part of was Lau v. Nichols, which I'm sure that many of you have heard of, but basically is the Supreme Court case that granted bilingual education to Chinese students and to all kind of non-English speaking students in the city of San Francisco, and was a national precedent, set a national precedent all across the country. So actually, on the panel back there on Language in the Sunset talks a little bit more about bilingual education. So a lot of connections between the history of the work of CAA and what has happened in the Sunset over the decades.
So in addition to sort of using, impact litigation as a strategy, we also, as an organization, strive to engage the community themselves into really creating systemic changes. As we know, so much of our immigration policies is really happening on an institutional level that trickles down from federal policies, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But our goal is to, be able to actually provide, great services, excellent services to community members in a variety of different program areas, including immigrant rights, workforce development, and also really being able to connect folks, right, who are either new immigrants, undocumented immigrants, or just, LEP, low-income immigrant families to crucial services that they need, but also to create leadership development programs to be able to really move people to become civically engaged and participatory. We actually had a graduation for our Leadership Development Institute just this past November. And I think that it's amazing that all of you all are here today, because this is sort of the kind of engagement and cultivating the kind of relationship that we need with the community in order for us to make an impact together. So, just sort of in line with what we've been talking about, as we sort of move through understanding the immigration system, we can't do that in absence of talking about, the historical reactions to immigrants, and immigration as a system is created a lot in response, right, to how immigrants have been historically scapegoated, painted as the other, and forever foreign. And, I think what's wonderful about the exhibit here is really being able to connect the dots, right? So some of the connections that we see is that, as Chinese Americans and Asian Americans, our integration or our inability to integrate in this country is very much linked and tied to a form of racism that we see prevalent today in today's policy. But what we do see is that, ever since the Chinese Exclusion Act, that's the first time where, this kind of racist exclusion is codified into immigration law. We also see that intersecting with other systems in many different ways that other communities of color experience in this country. And so that includes, housing segregation, including, inability to really be able to find jobs because there's not really a robust, workforce development or workforce integration process or pipeline, all the way to, being able to exercise your right to vote as a citizen, right? So the kind of ways that we define inclusion and exclusion has always been up against, right, a very homogenous narrative of what we think is sort of who's included in this country, right? Very much defined through a form of xenophobia and a form of racism that's prevalent.
Yes,
so,
of course I'm coming.
We really wanted to highlight, and I think also through the exhibition,
I'm at
is that
Sunset
a lot
Playground.
of our struggles and the way that we have been
So,
able
I
to
might
expand the sort of parameters of citizenship is in conjunction with other communities of color.
Yeah, I was going
because
to,
we're facing the same forms
I'm gonna be a
of,
little late.
exclusion or
So-
expulsion, that we were able to, through the kind of lived experiences,
Yeah.
connect with other communities of color to be able to push forward with civil rights.
And so we also wanted to talk a little bit about how things that have happened in history are continuing to repeat itself. So the forms of the different policies around exclusion have morphed, and so there may not be a Chinese Exclusion Act anymore, but implicit and explicit policies that continue to shape who belongs in this country, who doesn't belong, who is considered American or not American, continue to play out in different ways. And so, a lot of the conversation these days, I'm sure if you all turn on the news, you see a lot of conversation around immigration, particularly around undocumented immigration. And so these are just a few images that depict a little bit more around kind of the racism and xenophobia that we're seeing today and who it's targeted at. So, I think that different groups at different points in history have faced racism and exclusion as new waves of immigrants have come. So, with Irish immigrants, Italian immigrants, Chinese immigrants, Japanese immigrants, there's always kind of a morphing form of discrimination and racism that targets these different groups. And some groups are able to assimilate easier. A lot of that is because of colorism in this country. But the attacks against immigrant communities are similar today as they have been in the past. And this slide is actually hard to see, but this was just a clear parallel around today's policies under the Trump administration and what actually has been policy actually in the past. So back historically there was this picture over here is a picture of the Asiatic Barred Zone. And in U.S. history, there was a time when there were certain countries throughout the Middle East and kind of Western Asia, and also parts of Eastern Asia, where people were just barred from coming, which is very similar to what we're seeing now with Trump's temporary ban on refugees. So even though it sounds outrageous when we hear about it on the news, it's actually not a new policy. It's not something that the president has come up with on his own. It's something that has happened in the past, and we're facing it again. And as communities of color, we need to continue to stand united to fight back against such things.
I think just to sort of build off of the ways that this has been sort of visually represented, some of the ways that historical immigration legislations and policies are definitely playing out. When we hear about, really the restriction of family-based immigration and visa systems, right? When we hear about the ban on refugees and different, Muslim countries, as we hear about, restricting the kinds of benefits that immigrant families who are low income are able to access in this country, it's very much closely tied and correlated to the history of how immigration policies have evolved in this country. So when we're thinking about, how immigration policies are formed, it's really through, thinking about how the immigration landscape responds to need for cheap labor, right? To open the gates for immigrants to come in to fill that need, as we see in the temporary workers program that have been presented in our comprehensive immigration reform policies in the last 10 years. As we sort of think about, how immigrants are continually scapegoated when the economy, right, is sort of going through a downturn, and really criminalized, hyper-criminalized to be able to justify a continued expulsion through deportations and detentions. We see really that history is repeating itself. And I think specifically for the Chinese community, right, when we think about the historical legacy of, how Chinese Exclusion Act has really served a foundational sort of way where race is considered as a huge factor in how the immigration system opens or closes itself to immigrants, is really closely tied to how we ourselves form our identity as a nation. As we are commemorating the Chinese Exclusion Act in the 135th year this year, that we really do have to sort of stand and really be able to understand the connections that we see historically and today in immigration policy. So I think people already sort of touched upon this in terms of like current immigration headlines that we see, right? We've been talking a little bit about the ban on refugees. Some of you might have heard in the last week the Supreme Court has upheld this decision to carry out the executive ban, and that is very disheartening as advocates. But again, it is not a new fight, right? And this is a fight that we will continue to fight and continue to sort of be able to advance the kind of civil rights that's necessary for all immigrants. And also really our responsibility as a nation on human rights and sort of our global responsibility to the Treaty on Human Rights. But also really on a more localized level, right, some of the attacks on sanctuary cities, I think that, right, there's a little bit of a misnomer in terms of what people understand to be sanctuary cities, but it's really being able to respond and, protect people's due process rights, right? So being able to disentangle local law enforcement and immigration and customs enforcement to really ensure that immigrants who are going through and really getting their due process rights upheld by the court are not sort of being referred to immigration and that they have a fair due process. But really, being able to respond to some of the new attacks by the Trump administration. Some of you may know, right, that the Obama administration has deported an unprecedented number of almost 3 million people. And this is sort of unprecedented, right? It's never been seen before. But that in the last year, just 1 year almost in the new administration, that this number has spiked over 40%, right? And that has largely to do with the ways that immigration enforcement in this country has been bolstered, right, through executive power and expansion of executive powers, through budgetary personnel, and also really the hyper-criminalization of immigrants, making more, immigrants more susceptible to being removed from this country. about this is not so much just about, right, oh, we need to just sort of like tighten the border. These are sort of like unchecked powers, right? And as we know, when that happens in the history, right, in terms of how that kind of politics happens, right, immigrants and communities of color, we suffer because our voice, our political voice becomes, it gets snuffed out, right? But also, specifically to the Chinese community and API communities that we serve, something that we have heard in the last year is a lot of fear, right, around this idea of public charge. So there has been rumors, right, circulating in the community about, if you are an immigrant who is accessing public benefits, that you would be, right, under the climate of expanded criminalization susceptible to deportation. And so a lot of people are freaking out because they're like, I'm enrolling in really life-saving benefits like Medi-Cal, like, even school lunches would be considered as, a criteria for deportation under what the administration had leaked and proposed back in February. So what we see is a lot of families withdrawing from, these benefits, but also really, it really creates a climate of fear, right? And it really has impacted our communities in many different ways. And along with that, right, are a lot of harmful ways that immigrants have lost their ability to be protected. So as some of you might have heard, under the Obama administration, there was this Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, sometimes known as DACA, and that program has been rescinded back in September. And also recently, temporary protected status for Haitians and various other countries, right, and Latin America has also been rescinded. And this is really just a rolling back of rights, right? And these are folks who are really trying to escape natural disasters and many other sort of instability and war in their country. And so as protections are limited and are restricted, we also see negative immigration policies being put on the table, right? The further restriction of an already broken family-based immigration system through what we call the RAISE Act, right, which would also put into law some of the more harmful ways that our immigration system would be moving towards a more merit-based system where you would basically be accumulating points in order to be able to immigrate to this country. And we see that as really an attack on the civil rights victory, right? Many of the families and communities, and maybe even some of you who are here, have immigrated as a result of the sort of expansion of immigration preferences, family-based preferences. And so we are also, right, being put to the test in terms of, as advocates, being able to push for pro-immigrant policies and being able to stand united with other communities of color. So recently there has been updates on the Federal DREAM Act, right, which would allow for some undocumented youth and young people to get protection, many of whom would have been beneficiaries of the DACA program, to get permanent, right, path to citizenship. And so it's not an easy process, but in trying to be able to respond, right, to the heightened immigration enforcement climate, that we're also, right, not throwing anybody under the bus by saying, oh, it's okay for us to be able to pull back on family-based visas if we're able to get some people, right, a path to citizenship. So it's really, like Annette said, being able to create a united front.
So that was a lot of not so great news. So what can we do kind of in the meantime? Right? There's a lot of times when we hear what's happening with the Trump administration and the policies that are coming out, there's a lot of feeling of powerlessness. In the face of federal policy, what can we as individual people do, and people who may be directly impacted by these policies? So we are encouraging everybody, if you are uncertain about your immigration situation, to come in and get a screening at Chinese for Affirmative Action. So we put our phone number up here, it's not super visible, but it is 415-761-3222. If you have, and we're able to provide services in Cantonese, Mandarin, Lisan, and English. So if you or your family members or friends or neighbors would like to get an immigration kind of pre-screening, feel free to come in and see us. It's 415-761-3222. And we have advocates who can help folks get connected to legal services if the questions fall beyond the scope of our expertise. We're also encouraging folks to just prepare, get together your documents and talk to a trusted family member or loved one about if you have any medical conditions or anything else that folks might need to know about in the event that there is some kind of immigration emergency, that people will know how to access your information. So really encouraging people to prepare and get screened, also encouraging people to stay educated, to know what your rights are, and we'll get a little bit into that on the next slide, but really encouraging people to know your rights and stay up to date, not just to really find out what the news is, not just kind of following the trends, because there's a lot of fake news out there, and so how do we get truly informed about what's happening at the federal level, stay educated, and then also encouraging people to stay involved in community groups, get plugged into different organizations locally, here in the Sunset, in Chinatown, all throughout the city of San Francisco, the immigration advocates that are pushing for pro-immigrant inclusive policy. We encourage everybody to be a part of that. And also just reminding people that everybody has rights. So no matter who you are in this country, no matter what status you are, everybody has constitutional rights. And so the basic ones are rooted in our Constitution, which oftentimes these days seems to not apply to anything. But just to remind folks, the Constitution still applies no matter what the President says. The Fourth and the Sixth Amendments are really our protection from unlawful practices of law enforcement. So reminding people that if you do have an encounter with law enforcement or with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that you can always remain silent. You have the right to remain silent. You also have the right to protection from unlawful searches. So if you're encountering law enforcement on the street or in your home, they can't just look through your things. They can't ask you questions without formally detaining you. There's due process that needs to happen in those instances. And then the third right you have is the right to due process. So you have the right to request an attorney if you're being questioned by law enforcement. You have the right to a phone call. So really just wanted to remind everybody that in these uncertain times that you all still should feel empowered as people living here with basic human and civil rights.
Oh, please no more.
And also, San Francisco, through the support of the mayor's office and a network of community-based immigration legal providers and advocates such as ourselves, has formed a rapid response network to immigration and customs enforcement activity. And so, if you're witnessing ICE enforcement in your neighborhood, or you're driving somewhere and you see ICE agents around, you can call this phone number, and it's 415-200-1548. And basically what happens is it activates a kind of a tree system where advocates will go, the hotline is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so you can call at any time. So advocates will go and verify that immigration enforcement is taking place or has taken place. And we would connect people who are directly impacted with legal services and also social support services for the family that's left behind. So a lot of times, the reason why this is so crucial is because when things like that happen, the scariest thing is for people to feel like they don't know what the next step is. They don't actually know what has happened, what is the next step, who can help them, and who is kind of the unique experts in the field that would be able to know how to respond to something like this. So we really encourage folks to keep this number in your cell phone, and it's really a way for us to all stay united in the front against these attacks on our brothers and sisters and immigrant communities as a whole.
And also just to flag that this hotline, because we work through the San Francisco Immigrant Legal and Education Network, there are multiple languages that are available for this hotline. And a lot of times, we might think, I'm not undocumented, or actually I'm a citizen. Why do I need this information, right? I think that first, we're relying on you, right, to really get the word out to people who might be affected. And, under sort of even the Obama administration, the majority of the people who are getting deported or have been detained are actually green card holders who have previously had run into the law and have a criminal, history. And many of them are, people who have 20-year-old DUIs, right? So really being able to make sure that we are getting the word out, but also, a lot of the calls that we get on this hotline where we have to go verify rates are actually from allies who, might have been seeing some enforcement activity happening on the streets or, near you in your neighborhood, and they are calling the hotline to activate the safety net, right, to protect everybody and the rights that Annette had mentioned. So we wanted to sort of save some space at the end for folks to be able to And just so that if you have your pen and paper out, the two numbers are, the first one is CAA's informational and screening hotline. It's 415-761-3222. 415-761-3222. Yes. So it's actually a voice mailbox because it's not an emergency number, emergency hotline. It would basically prompt for the person to leave their contact information, and our staff would call folks back to schedule an appointment. And we can provide that in multiple Chinese dialects and English. And then the second number is the San Francisco citywide rapid response hotline. This is an emergency hotline for raid reporting or verification. That number is 415-200-1548. 415-200-1548. And that number is 24 hours, and somebody will be live on the phone to be able to respond to the request.
For any of our services, so everything, all the consultations and pre-screenings will be free. Our referrals are free, and the legal service providers we work with, they will provide either services for free or for low cost. One more question. Yeah. So this rapid response hotline is for San Francisco in particular, but there are several other rapid response networks all throughout the Bay Area. And so if, for example, you're in Oakland, but you only remember the San Francisco hotline number, if you call it, the dispatcher should be able to give you the number for the Oakland hotline.
Most people think of it as a Latino issue, for Mexican, Central American, but someone had the numbers of undocumented Chinese and Asians, and it's surprising. So I think I heard about 6 or 8 months ago, there was an ICE raid in the Sunset. Do you know anything about that?
That's correct. So in relation to the numbers, 1 in 7 undocumented people in this country are Asian Pacific Islander. In California, on our own, in this state, there are about 412,000 undocumented Asian Pacific Islanders. In the city of San Francisco, for Chinese communities, there are about 10,000 undocumented, persons living here within us. And in relation to the raid that happened, I think it was back in March, CA actually, we were on the hotline and helped verify the enforcement activity that happened. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So we went out to verify the activity out there, and basically there was a family where 2 family members were taken, and there was a mother and a child that was like a very young child that was left behind. And so the Rapid Response Network, what we did was we helped to verify. We got the details of what happened down, and we were able to connect the mother with legal support services and ensure that the child was safely able to remain with the mother, and if not the mother, then a close family member. So helping people fill out paperwork to ensure that the child doesn't end up in foster care is a crucial part of also the Rapid Response Network.
And I just also wanted to flag that we work with a greater network of volunteers. So actually we were able to dispatch some legal observers to the scene here in the Sunset within 7 minutes once the hotline was activated, to just ensure that, they're not attorneys, they're not going to intervene, right? But just to ensure that people's rights were protected. And I think specifically in the incident in the Sunset, and sort of a growing trend is that, because San Francisco as a local jurisdiction, we don't refer people and we don't collaborate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The federal government has gotten smarter in terms of collaborating with other federal agencies like the FBI and the DEA, and so really bringing the criminal justice a lot closer to the immigration system, which makes us all a lot more vulnerable to kinds of activities dealing with enforcement.
But did somebody report a young mother? It's very hard to imagine how she was being targeted.
I can't take this.
Yeah, so a lot of the activity that's happening under the Trump administration especially is really being basically not
This is, I'm sorry, this is going
You will come back?
oh my goodness. Oh yeah. The painting's almost there.
Oh, if your muffin's running away, I think you're probably the best muffin maker.
Look all this process going. It's and I thought the process was going slow. Yay.
Yeah, you can make a muffin.
Going, and I wish I would have stayed, but
Gotta go, Lawrence.
Thank you for
unfortunately.
helping out, Lawrence. Thank you for stopping
The CAA was like long-winded talks. Please end it.
Really?
Yeah, it was like, please end the ramblings and the questions.
Was there a lot of questions?
No, there's a lot more talks, and then there's long-winded answering 2 questions. Oh gosh, please end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there interesting though?
It was the same. It's the same topic, but it was like, oh dear. Yeah. But
You're not gonna stay for the dancing?
No, I had my friend's birthday took that.
Oh, you're busy.
I was like, oh, look at this beautiful artwork.
You asked kids if you bring you some muffin.
Oh, you got some cool texture there.
I would love to come back to see this finished project.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
if you have time, come back and hang out.
Yay. How?
Do you like cake, Kingsley?